Blessings and welcome back to How to Master the Art of Manifestation 2.0. And as we are continuing to dive ever deeper into the beautiful realm, the beautiful dimension, the beautiful pillar that I have come to call unconditional trust and surrender. And as I've shared before, this is really where the ease and grace finds its way into our life. This is really where the flow finds its way into our life. Because when we are steeped in trust, when we are steeped in the knowing that all is well, when we are steeped in not even concerning ourselves with the hows or the whens or even the whats of these four dimensions that we'll cover in a later session, these four dimensions of manifestation, when we're just allowing it to be, when we're just soaring, when we're relaxing, rejoicing, and letting it all be, then there can be nothing but ease and grace. Then there can be nothing but flow, a beautiful flow in our lives. So that's when we have turned the canoe around from efforting and struggling and fighting and working very hard to move upstreams. Now, through trust, through surrendering, we turn the canoe around and we just float with the current. And we hardly have to do any work at all. So the journey becomes effortless in the sense that we are not pushing against anything. We're not trying to make anything happen. We're not trying to coerce or compete or win over or beat someone else to the finish line or anything like that. There's just a beautiful participation. So we have been exploring in this section so far different aspects of trust and surrender, what it feels like, what it is, what it means, and all of these beautiful things. And so now the time has come for us to really dig into and dive into what it is that we're trusting. So we perhaps, and I'm trusting that you have caught the importance of trusting. But what then is it that we're trusting? So this session and the following sessions will be about just that, because it is easy to conceptualize, it is easy to intellectualize this idea of trusting, but this is where we really get to begin to do the work, to release and let go much of those stories and beliefs that we talked about in the session of what it is that is keeping us from trusting. So let us begin. And I just want to say this one thing as well. As we're moving through this, I know that I've said it before in the beginning of this course, as we're moving through this section and as we're moving through all these sections, there will be repetition. I will repeat myself. The same words, the same phrases will find their way into this conversation over and over and over again. And to the surface mind, that may seem redundant. But repetition truly is the key to learning. Every single story, every single belief that we hold on to, everything that we believe to be true at this point has come into our awareness, has been made habitual through repetition. So as I'm repeating different words and phrases over and over and over again, the invitation is for us to be mindful of the egoic reaction to that when we perhaps fall prey to judgments such as, oh my God, is he gonna say this again? I mean, how many times can he say this? I've heard it so many times before. Yes, you have. And you're gonna keep hearing it a number of times still. And this is necessary, this is needed to break down the old thought forms, the old habitual repetitive ways of thinking, patterns within ourselves. So repetition is the key. And so I'm going to continue I'm not consciously choosing the words, they just flow through me, but I'm not going to stop them. When I hear myself repeat something that I know that I've said before, I'm not going to stop it. I just want to bring our awareness to that. So what then is it that we're trusting? Well, let us begin by just briefly mentioning, and this is something that we'll explore a little bit more in a later session, I believe. So, we're not trusting ourselves. We are not trusting our little selves. We're not trusting our abilities. We're not trusting our capabilities. We're not trusting our intellect. We're not trusting our gifts. We're not trusting anything about ourselves, because we are not the ones doing it. We are not the ones doing it. And as I said, this is something that we'll circle back to in a later session. So what then is it that we are trusting? If we're not trusting ourselves, what is it that we are trusting? You may have heard me say that there is only one power. There's only one mind. There's only one life. There's only one intelligence. There's only one source of anything, everything. And this oneness, the whole, the all in all, the only thing there ever is, that ever was, that ever will be, this is what we're trusting. And we can call it God, we can call it energy, we can call it spirit, we can call it the benevolent loving presence, we can call it the unified field or divine matrix, or whatever words we resonate with. But it is this that we are trusting. And I forgot to say that the topic for this session, what we're exploring here, are the 3 pillars of trust. So there are 3 aspects of this benevolent loving presence, which is one of the words that I favor the most. There are 3 aspects of this that we are trusting that lays the foundation for all of trust. So we're going to explore these. I'm going to mention them, and then we're going to explore them each at a time to really have an understanding of what they mean. So the 3 pillars of trust, they are that we are trusting the allness of this benevolent loving presence. We are trusting its benevolence, its goodness, and we are trusting its perfection, that it is always expressing itself, that it is always expressing itself perfectly. So what does allness mean, that first pillar of trust? It simply means that there is only this loving presence expressing itself in, as, and through all of creation. It is the creator, it is the creation, it is eternal, it is infinite, it is boundless, it is limitless, it is all there is, it is fully present, evenly present in every space and every place, which means that there's no space nor place we can ever be or go where this loving presence is not, where it is not fully expressing itself. And it means that as it is all there is, it means that we, that is you and me, we are unique, we are perfect, we are whole, we are complete expressions of this loving presence. We are it experiencing itself. We are it living itself, knowing itself, revealing itself in us and through us in such a beautiful, wonderful, and magnificent and powerful way. Just like the ocean. The ocean is a vast body of water, and on top of that vast body of water, there are waves. Some are large, some are smaller, some are, curly. I don't know if that's a description of a wave, but that's the word that comes to me. But each and every single one of these waves, they are not separate from the ocean, but they are the ocean, a unique expression, emanation of the ocean, which means that each and every single wave, it carries all of the qualities of the ocean. Everything that the ocean is, every unique wave is. So they are lacking nothing. They are missing nothing. They are not separate. They are not divided from the ocean. Because the ocean cannot divide itself into parts. The ocean is the ocean. Right? And so it is with us in this loving presence. It is all there is. Every aspect of our lives, every single vision or dream or intention that we have caught is this loving presence seeking to reveal more of itself, calling us as unique emanations of it, as unique expressions of it, into a fuller expression, into an expanded expression, which brings us to the will of this benevolent loving presence, which equals the purpose of all of life, which is for this loving presence to express more of itself, to expand, to progress. So this is this evolutionary impulse. This is why species evolve, that this is why the cosmos keeps expanding. This is why we are growing, why we are unfolding. There's no stagnation anywhere in creation. There's always a forward movement, an ever expansion, so that this loving presence, and we can call it God and whatever, so that it may know more of itself, so that it may reveal more of itself, so that it may express, so that it may express more of itself, right? So this is the allness, which means that there are no dualities, there are no opposites in this loving presence. There's no God and something else outside of God. And I know that the word God sometimes is charged with the notion that it is a he, and that he is a bearded man that is sitting up there in the sky, out there somewhere, passing judgments, favoring people and all that. This is not at all what we're talking about. We are talking about a presence that is always present, that is never in absence, that is every space, every place, every moment, every being, every object. There's nothing outside of God. So this is the allness. So everywhere we look, everywhere we go, there God is in its fullness. Because this loving presence, as we come into the second pillar of trust, which is the benevolence, the goodness. So this loving presence, it is always for itself. It is always for the expansion. It is always for its own expansion. It is always for its own expanded revelation. So it cannot ever be against itself. It cannot ever compromise itself, which means that it is what it is. It has always been what it is. It will always be what it is. It cannot change up its nature. It cannot change up and reconfigure its benevolence. It is always for itself. It is eternally sourcing and fueling and funding itself. It is eternally guiding and leading and moving itself into this expansion, making sure that all needs are met, that everything needed for the expansion to happen is provided, is given. Even before the need arises, it is met, right? So it cannot ever go back on itself. It cannot ever contradict itself. It is loving. It is peace. It is joy. Not only peace and joy, it is infinite peace. It is infinite joy. It is all love. Infinite love. All wholeness, infinite wholeness. And as God is all there is, it means that these are fully present everywhere in every space and place. So this loving presence, it is always for itself. And as we, that is you and me, as we are unique, perfect, whole, complete expressions of it, it means that everything is for us. Something wonderful is always happening. Everything is always working for our highest good. Everything is always working so that we may allow for the next great and grand version of who and what we are to emerge, so that we may continue to shine, to soar, to glow, to give spirit permission to express itself at its fullest in us and through us. Right? So it is benevolent, just like the sun. The sun is loving. It is unconditional. And the sun does what it does. It gives and shares of what it has to give and share. It gives of its warmth. It gives of its luminosity. without regard for who is receiving it. So it shines on the just and the unjust. It shines on the white, on the black, on the Asians, on the Jews, the Muslims. It shines on everyone, regardless of religion, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of the amount of money in the bank, regardless of last name. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discern. It passes no judgment. This is the benevolence, beautifully expressed. The grace, which is the givingness and the givenness, the full givingness and givenness that God is. That God doesn't withhold. God doesn't deny. God doesn't say, oh, you deserve it, but you don't. But God gives fully and freely, everywhere and all the time. Right? Benevolence. It is benevolent. All benevolent. And then the third pillar is the perfection of this loving presence. How it is always expressing itself perfectly. That there are no mistakes. There are no meaningless acts. There are no random acts. God is never early. God is never late. It is always expressing itself perfectly on time. It is always expressing itself perfectly through action and activity. Perfect preparation. Unfolding is always happening. And this segment, this section of this course is such a beautiful testament to that synchronicity, to that perfection. As I'm being moved through a space where I'm being called to go even deeper into trusting and surrendering, how perfect it is. How perfect is it not that I am now being called to record these sessions? So I get to be reminded of the very principles that I'm being called to go deeper into. As I'm moving through a space where the egoic structures are frantically trying to figure out how to move forward, trying to plan the way forward, and where structures are crumbling at what seems to be a higher rate than the new structures are being built. So the appearance is of lack. The appearance is of scarcity. And how beautiful it is that I now get to dive so deep into these principles of trusting and surrendering. And this is not something that I had planned. When I began recording this course, the challenges that I'm now facing, they weren't here. But through the divine design, the divine perfection of this loving presence, I'm finding myself in the precise, exact position where I need to be, recording these sessions, getting to immerse myself in this beautiful space where I really get to build a beautiful, as I get to teach these principles and techniques and tools, as I'm sharing it with you, I'm most definitely benefiting from it, because I'm being reminded, I'm teaching myself of what to come back to. This is just one out of so many examples of the beautiful synchronicity, of the beautiful preparation that is always happening, the beautiful unfolding that is always happening. And we can see it in nature all of the time, how every single plant in nature, it grows according to its own perfect pattern. Like the apple tree, it doesn't begin to carry apples before it is good and ready to carry apples. and it doesn't carry like a ton of apples right from the get-go. But it begins with a few apples so that the branches may grow strong, so that the stem may grow strong enough to sustain the apples. And the stronger the branches and the stem grows, the more apple the apple tree carries. Just one example. And if we look at our lives, we can absolutely find evidence of all these three pillars. How we perhaps were having our backs against the ropes, and out of nowhere, absolutely nowhere, an opening happened. A solution presented itself. A way out revealed itself. Not because of our doingness, but because God is all there is, and because God is benevolent. And this is something that we'll explore much, much more in the section of challenges. How to work with these principles, how to work with this understanding, how to work with trust and surrendering. So to allow for the challenges that we face to dissolve. Not be solved, but be dissolved. Because in God, there are no challenges. In God, there are no challenges. So we're so wise to come back to these. And I was actually asked today by an individual earlier today about this. How to go deeper into trust. And the way to go deeper is to come back to these three pillars over and over and over again. God is all there is, which means that right here where I am, where we are, the fullness of this loving presence is. We are unique, perfect, whole, complete expressions of it, lacking nothing, missing nothing. Every single dream, vision, intention that we have, they're like seeds planted within us. And just like any seed, and this is something that we'll explore and talk more about in a later session, every seed in nature has everything needed for it to come into its fullest expression. So everything is for us. And just the mere fact that we have caught our dreams, our visions, our desires, is a testimony that we are being called to allow them to manifest, to come through. So God is all there is, and God is always for itself, making sure that all needs are met. That lily on the field consciousness, it doesn't spin, it doesn't toil, it doesn't effort, it doesn't struggle, and yet it is so beautifully provided for, abundantly provided for, right? And the God is always expressing himself perfectly. Perfect preparation, perfect unfoldment, it's always happening. Even if we cannot see it. Even if we cannot see it, it is still so. So working with these principles, working with these pillars, reminding ourselves of them all of the time, looking for evidence of them all over the place, allows them to be integrated within us. And this is something that I don't think we've talked about, but the process of integration, the process of embodying, this all begins with, not always. Sometimes we just get it. Sometimes we just catch it. But most of the time, this begins with us getting an intellectual understanding. A concept. We get a concept, we get an idea, and we work with it, we lean into it, we look for it, we look for evidence of it in our own lives, in the lives of others, out in nature, all around in the world. And from us finding that evidence, from us having an experience of the realization of the concept, of the intellectual piece of information that we have heard or seen or read or caught, it begins to be embodied. And so we begin to more and more live and move from that. And that's pretty much what this individual was asking. How to incorporate, how to find the trust. Yes, I want to believe that God is all there is. I want to believe that God is good, but I see no evidence of it. Well, we need to look for it. We need to really, really look for it. We need to really, really steep ourselves in prayers and meditations and studying, hanging out in high-minded fellowship, where we get to explore these ideas, where we get to have a conversation around these ideas, so that they begin to move themselves from the intellectual faculties into really being embodied and integrated into our beings on a cellular level. On a cellular level. This is work that we need to do on a moment-to-moment basis, like on a daily basis, every single day. Every single day I move into prayer to treat my mind to know that this is true, to treat my mind to not believe the surface appearances, but to believe that which is beyond what my physical senses can pick up. Every single day I repeat these affirmations. All is well, something wonderful is always happening, everything is working for the highest good, perfection and unfolding is always happening. Every single day. Every single day I have these casual conversations with God to establish that conscious connection, that conscious relationship with this loving presence. So this is work. So this is work that we need to do. But it brings such joy, it brings such immense benefits, such immense gifts and blessings in terms of ever-expanding peace, in terms of ever-expanding ease, in terms of ever-expanding flow, in terms of ever-expanding joy. As Jesus said, be of good cheer, for I've overcome the world. He wasn't denying that things were happening. He wasn't denying that there was suffering in the world. But he said, I'm not giving that permission to touch me, because I know that the Father in heaven is good. Those were his words. He spoke of Father in heaven. I do not, but we're still speaking about the same benevolent presence. We need to want to look for it. We need to want to see it. God is all there is. Spirit is all there is. Energy is all there is. God is always for itself. Spirit is always for itself. Energy is always for itself. God is always expressing itself perfectly. Spirit is always expressing itself perfectly. Energy is always expressing itself perfectly. Allness, goodness, perfection. Allness, goodness, perfection. These are the three pillars of trust that will build the foundation, that makes up the foundation from which we get to allow for the manifestation to happen with ease and grace. Cool. So the invitation for us is to become aware as we are hearing these pillars, as we are exploring these pillars. The first thing we want to be aware of is which ones are we having the most difficult time with believing, with seeing. I know that a lot of individuals, a lot of people are having a difficult time believing, seeing the benevolence. As things are swirling in the world, there's so many things happening. Wars and killings and violence and bigotry and racism and all these things, greed, all these things happening. So people are having a difficult time seeing the benevolence. And this is something that we will not talk about in here, but we will talk about it in the section of challenges. How to see God in the midst of this. How to know that all is well, even in the midst of this. Even in the midst of everything that is going on. So that's the invitation, to look at our own minds, to once again, to become aware of the stories that we hold on to. What is our perception of God? What is our perception of this benevolent, loving presence? What do we believe it to be? And the questions, or the question that we are invited to ask ourselves as we take this inventory, as we witness and observe our own minds, as we become aware, the question that we are to ask ourselves is, this that I'm becoming aware of, is it serving me? Yes, it may have been something that I have believed for all of my life, but is it serving me? Is it calling forth? Is it bringing forth peace? When I think of God this way, does it soothe my soul? Does it release tension? Does it dissolve anxiety or stress or fear or worry or doubt? And if the answer is no to that question, if it serves, then we're invited to release and let these go. These notions, these beliefs, these perceptions, these judgments, these opinions, these stories, to release and let them go. To allow for a new expanded point of view, as we talked about in the previous session, to give ourselves permission to climb higher onto the mountain, up the mountain, so that we can take on a greater vantage point, a higher purview, a more expanded perspective, one that serves us, that actually serves us, right? My soul is soothed. Going into this recording, I was experiencing a little bit of tension, a little bit of stress. My soul is soothed. My body is relaxed. Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for participating, for tuning in, for joining into this conversation, for being on this adventure, this journey of going ever deeper into this beautiful way of life. Until we meet in the next session, I absolutely, as always, bless our days, and I bless our ways, in the full knowing that all is well, even now. Something wonderful is happening now, always, forever. Everything is working for our highest good, regardless. In the full knowing that perfect preparation and unfolding is always happening, now, always, forever. Much love, many blessings. Namaste.